Treat them right, and trees can shade your house, beautify your property, even save you money on energy. But disease, pests, or extreme weather can damage even the sturdiest oaks or cedar trees. And even healthy trees need a little branch management in the form of regular pruning or the occasional checkup. To keep your trees in shape or to get rid of dying or dangerous ones, you'll probably need professional advice and labor. So, where do you start? We're here to help. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at Checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at Checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on Checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
Whether you have a towering oak shading your porch or a scraggly pine that's seen better days, chances are your trees need more attention than you're giving them. In this episode, how to tell if your trees need work, and if so, how to find the right company to do the job. Picking the wrong one can lead to a disaster. Plus, some tips for the do-it-yourselfers. Checkbook's executive editor Kevin Brassler is here with what you need to know. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Herb.
So, do you know anything about trees?
Well, I mean, I know what they are, right? I know one when I see one. I like to hike a lot, so I'm in the woods a lot.
All right.
I can tell you what's a maple and what's an oak, and I definitely know what's like a pine tree.
Good.
But, I think we did a podcast on garden centers, and, it was, we exposed there that I'm a little shaky in terms of gardening and biology in general. But what I can tell you is that I've been covering local services for 30 years now, and so I've learned some stuff on how to hire and deal with tree care services. And one thing I can definitely tell you, and Herb, you can echo this, people have a lot of problems with these companies. A lot of problems with not just scammers who come door to door, we'll talk about that, but also legitimate companies that say they know what they're doing, but really don't. And this is dangerous work for all involved.
Well, I know a lot about trees because I live in a neighborhood called Tall Firs, and sometimes those tall firs come down. Over the years, we've had one tree fall on the house, one tree fall and wipe out the car and total in the driveway. So yes, this is very, very important to talk about. The problem is that a lot of so-called tree care services aren't really experts at taking down or taking care of trees.
Yeah, I think, this is kind of a starting point to where the problems often occur. So many companies, they employ or they are owned by certified arborists, people who went to school and have studied this stuff, and especially more important, probably have been working in this field for a long time. But a lot of other companies, what they do is they remove trees that have fallen down or are about to fall down, and overall just don't really know much about how to keep trees healthy. And so, look, if you need a cleanup, if your tree's already on the ground or it's about to be, you want qualified people to deal with it. I mean, as I said, it's very dangerous work. It's dangerous to the people doing it. It's dangerous to the people hanging out and walking around below or living below. It's dangerous to the property all around the thing. But if you're looking to keep your trees healthy, it's kind of a somewhat different task, and you need to choose wisely. I once had a tree expert, an owner of one of these companies, call me, and he complained that, look, I do different work than other companies, and therefore Checkbook should rate me differently. He said that, basically, I'm an arborist. I have a graduate degree in this stuff, and I'm here to take care of trees. That's what I see my job as. He said, basically, once a tree has fallen down, for him, it's too late to help.
Yep.
And so if you're looking to keep your trees healthy, it's kind of a different process in terms of picking a company.
So let's start where you left off. How does a homeowner even know their tree needs attention? Most of us aren't out there studying the trees all the time.
Yeah, and so, the good news is you don't need to be an expert necessarily to spot a lot of the warning signs. And that's good because, as we've already mentioned, I'm definitely not an expert. Trees usually, they communicate whether they're distressed or not. So a few times a year, I think it makes sense just to, walk around your yard and look for things like, especially discolored leaves when it's, you're not in the middle of a drought. Another warning flag is that if you see a lot of thinning at the top of the tree, what arborists call the crown, you don't see a lot of new growth up there during the growing season. You can also check the roots. Does it look like they're kind of pulling loose from the ground? A lot of arborists say to look for fungus near the base of the tree. And then really importantly, you want to look at the trunk of the tree. Do you see like really deep vertical cracks? If you see sawdust, it could be the signal of wood-burring insects. And then, most importantly, kind of take a longer look at the tree, a wider look, and see, is it look like the trunk's leaning noticeably? Is the canopy lopsided? Those are big red flags too.
Other important things to inspect, of course, are branches that hang over your house or your neighbor's house or that threaten the utility lines.
Yeah, so even if your tree's healthy, it still might need work periodically. During a storm, you don't want heavy branches crashing down on top of where you sleep at night or where your kids sleep at night. You also want to make sure that the roots aren't threatening your home's foundation. This is something we've really looked out for. In our neighborhood, we have lots of really big trees. They end up eventually, not just from our property, but from the church property that's next door to us, hanging over our roof, hanging over especially where our kids sleep. And so we actually pay on our own to have those trees trimmed, even though they don't belong to us, because it's a safety matter. If they fall down on our roof, it's up to us to handle that claim or deal with the injury. The other property owners, they're not responsible for when branches fall on your house generally.
Another personal story to share, taking down a big tree. I mean, we have trees that are probably 100 years old in our neighborhood, and I got an estimate to take down. It was a dead tree, but it was going to have to come down anyway, and it was $10,500 to bring the tree down and haul the wood away. $10,500. So obviously, being a consumer reporter, I got a second estimate, and I called the company that works for the power company that goes around and trims the branches back all year long, and the woman said, we're backed up 3 months, so what are you trying to do? And I told her, I said that if the branches come down or the tree comes down, it's going to wipe out the whole power lines for the whole neighborhood. She said, why don't you call the power company and see if they'll help you out? So she gave me a number for the ecology department or whatever, and I called the power company. I said, hi, I got this tree and it's threatening your lines. Can you come take a look? And they said, sure. About 3 weeks later, a crew came out and took a look, and they said, yep, your tree's threatening our lines. We're going to take it down for you for free. For free. It cost me $900 to haul the wood away. So I saved, I can't do the math, like $9,000 some dollars by calling the power company. If it is something that's threatening your utilities, see if your utility has a program to help you deal with it. It's worth a call.
Yeah, it's worth a call. I don't think you can count on it. I think also another thing that it's happened to me, I got, I guess, lucky in a way. Our old house, the house we lived in before this one, we had a tree during a storm fall into the street. And somehow it dodged every car parallel parked on our street.
Yeah.
And the county had to come out and remove it because it was blocking the street. They came out that day with a crew and got rid of it. I don't think you can count on that. But yeah, I think especially if your tree is over power lines, if it's threatening multiple properties, if it's somebody else's tree and it's threatening your property and your neighbor's property, then maybe you can split the cost with the neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, we're insured against this type of loss, a branch falling through your roof. But, in general, you just don't want to deal with this hassle. It's better to get stuff cleaned up, pruned, taken care of in advance rather than, deal with the aftermath.
You've noticed a problem. You want to check out your trees. So what's the first step? Where do we begin?
Yeah, I do think it makes sense, especially, if you're not sure if a tree's healthy or not, or you just want somebody to check on all your trees, to get expert eyes on it. And the problem is, not all experts are created equal. I mean, as we mentioned, some companies, they don't really have experts. And so often they do more harm than good. I mean, I've gotten so many complaints over the years from homeowners where they hired a tree care company for pruning, and this company just came out and basically just topped off the whole tree. Or they pruned out perfectly healthy trees just to generate income. They were saying, oh yeah, you need lots of work here done. And they did lots of work, but it wasn't really needed. Another complaint I get is about, these companies send out so-called experts and they just misdiagnose the problem completely. A lot of times we find that trees are lost every year just because of bad advice.
And I like having an independent arborist because they have no skin in the game. They're not going to make money if they say this tree's got to come down. So That's my other story. So after the tree came down on the house, my office, by the way, and caused $50,000 worth of damage, I decided to call an arborist and have him look at all the other trees. And all the cedars were really good. They're really solid. But the hemlocks, they're a problem. The one that came down had a hollow spot in the middle. He said, these two hemlocks right in front of your house, they're the two problems. And he said, I'll put this rod through the tree, and it's like a sonar. He could look inside and see if there was a problem. He said, yep, tree number 1's fine. Tree number 2's got a hollow thing in it. This is the one that could come down. He said, you got two options. You can take them down, which would cost about $3,500 a piece, or there's a company in town, if you want to call them, I know, that tie them up at the top, way up. You can never see it, and they'll tie it to the cedar tree, and then if the wind blows, they're not going to go anywhere. Even if it cracks, it's not going to go anywhere. So we did that. We paid $1,500 to have the trees tied up, as opposed to $7,000 to have them come down, and he gave me a good assessment of what my risk was. That's why I like an independent arborist. They don't have skin in the game.
Yeah, I think as we mentioned, some of these companies, they're owned by or they're operated by certified arborists, and it's fine to start with them if it's a great company, but a lot of times you don't. And in some cases, we find certified, knowledgeable people are going to come up with work you don't need because they're actually operating the tree care service. And so There are certification programs for arborists. Some work independently. They just come out, check on things, tell you what you need to do, and they don't actually work for or operate tree care businesses. And I think that's a smart way to go, especially if you're not sure, or maybe more importantly, if you need a second opinion. If someone's told you, oh, you need all this work done, well, go get an independent opinion from an arborist. There's a group called the American Society of Consulting Arborists. They certify arborists. There's a competing group, believe it or not, called the International Society of Arboriculture. They seem to have well thought out, robust programs for certifying these people. And I think at least it's a good place to start.
Well, it's pretty clear that a lot can go wrong if you hire the wrong tree service. How can you find a good one? Kevin has some tips on that straight ahead. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by Checkbook.org.
Looking to hire a good tree service? Checkbook has ratings for hundreds of them, as well as lawn care services in and around these 7 cities: Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. If you live in or around one of these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Get a free 30-day subscription to all our ratings by going to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia.
All right, you know you have a tree that you have to take down and you're going to hire a contractor. If you live in the 7 cities where Checkbook rates tree services, you can start there. But no matter which contractor you hire, Kevin, you've got to make sure they're licensed, right?
Yeah, so most states, they do require tree care services to get a license to operate. And you definitely want to avoid companies that can't prove to you that they're a licensed outfit. But one thing you need to know is that having a tree care license doesn't mean that they're going to do careful work or even responsible work, or maybe even try to rip you off. And the reason is that really only a few states, Maryland is one of them, has any kind of requirements of these companies. In order to get their license, for example, in Maryland, they have to employ somebody who has a 4-year degree in tree care work, basically. They're an arborist, or have a long amount of experience doing this type of work. In most states, you just have to file the proper paperwork. In some states, you have to have a bond that you post, and others, you have to prove that you have proper insurance. So yeah, it's still important that you have a licensed company, but just don't assume that, they're licensed, it means they know what they're doing. It just means in most states that they've, jumped through the hoops in order to get the license, not that they've proved that they're competent.
And on the other hand, the shady contractors either don't bother to get a license, which is a tell, or they use an old expired license, so you need to check to make sure it's current with your state. But that's another benefit of having a licensed contractor. If they've taken the time to do that, can eliminate some of the bad guys right away.
Yeah, and the bad guys are unlicensed, for a reason. Right. It's because they want to rip people off and take their money, usually. You and I both talk to consumer officials, people who run departments of consumer affairs, people who work for attorney general's offices. What's their number one complaint? It's unlicensed contractors. And there's a reason that that's the number one complaint, is that the unlicensed guys are the ones who often are doing bad work or ripping people off.
Let's talk about insurance. They got to have insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it's non-negotiable, right? I mean, this is such dangerous work. It's dangerous to the people doing the work, so they need workers' compensation insurance. It's also dangerous to everyone else around this work that's being done, so you need to make sure that they have proper liability coverage, too. I mean, I'd say if they don't have a liability insurance policy of $2 million or more, you don't want them anywhere near your trees.
Okay. And don't just take their word for it, right?
Good companies will readily produce certificates, current certificates showing that this is who I'm insured by, this is for how much, here's the agent, if you want to contact that agent to verify this.
For folks who are listening today, if you come away with anything, it is that you should never hire people who just come to the door, knock on your door after a storm, offering to take care of a downed tree or branches, or coming through the neighborhood and we just notice that you've got a couple of dead trees that need to be taken down. This is a common scam. You've really got to be careful with this.
Yeah, it's probably the most common door-to-door scam. I mentioned before, we had a downed tree once. It was partially into the street. And within an hour, I mean, it was just nonstop scammers coming to my front door, just one after another. And they'd say, give me $500 right now. My crew's just around the corner. The crews are always just around the corner.
Right.
They're just around the corner. We'll be right back with them, and I'll have this done within a couple hours. If I give them $500, you think I'd ever see that guy again? And I'm talking about, again, over the course of a couple, 3 hours, 6 different people came to my door. Never do this. In fact, just never deal with anyone coming door to door, but especially tree care services. I mean, after a major storm, if you have damage to your trees, you need to be the one finding and contracting help to deal with it and deal with the cleanup, not having people seek you out. The high quality tree care services, they're going to be busy, right? After a big storm, other people have trees down. Yeah, they're going to be busy, but they will still get to you. I mean, this is when they ramp up. This is how they make hay is right after storms.
And you may have to wait a few days, as you said, but it's better than getting stuck with a scammer who's going to steal the money, or worse yet, maybe an incompetent tree service that brings the tree down improperly and damages your house. I had a neighbor next door who wanted to save some money, and they dropped a 300-pound round. It bounced off the trunk down below, and thank God it bounced out, because if it had bounced in, it would have taken out their whole roof.
Yeah, and this happens all the time. We hear about people all the time. Oh, I hired this company and they dropped branches on my car, my neighbor's car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the result is like a feud in the neighborhood, right? Who's responsible for this? The contractor's long gone at that point, especially if they're unlicensed. They're probably hiding, right?
Right.
But I think it's another thing, a reason to keep on top of the situation. Try to identify trees that could be a problem and deal with them before they drop branches on your house.
Yeah, and that's also important. Don't wait until there's a crisis. Check out your yard and know what shape it's in. Maybe that's one of your spring cleaning chores or whatever.
Exactly.
So let's talk money. Tree work is really expensive, and there's not much you can do about that.
So the best thing you can do to keep costs down is to get multiple estimates. If you have a tree that needs to be removed, one that needs to be pruned, even one that's down in your yard, you're going to save money by getting more than one price. And the reason is that we've found the price range for tree care work among companies that are equally qualified, even the good companies, that they charge vastly different prices for the same work. So for a typical tree removal job, for a pretty small tree actually, our undercover shoppers collected price quotes ranging from under $2,000 to over $6,000 for the same job. And Herb, as you mentioned, if it's a really big job, if they have to bring in a crane and the tree's in your backyard and it's really delicate operation in terms of bringing it down, it can cost $10,000 or more, even if you get several bids. And so the range might be from $10,000 to $20,000. You usually don't have to be home to get proposals from companies. If you want a tree pruned or removed entirely, you can usually just tie a rope to it or something like that. Let the company know which tree you want addressed, and they'll happily just email you cost proposals later on or leave them in your door.
Tony Orlando would say tie a yellow ribbon around that old oak tree.
Yeah, around the old oak tree you want gone.
So you get those proposals. By the way, you got to read them.
Yeah, it could be that a low price means that the company isn't including full cleanup. They're not including haul away all debris, removing the stump. That's usually a big gotcha. Some of these companies basically just price it that they're going to cut the tree flush to the ground, but not actually grind out the stump. That's extra. If you want the wood cut into firewood, that's usually an extra also. And some of these things can be significant add-ons. As I mentioned, the stump removal, that can cost a lot more. Mm-hmm. So just make sure you're comparing apples to apples when you're looking at these proposals, and then ask questions if you're not sure.
And how do you want to pay?
Yeah, it's really important that you pay after the job is done. I mean, it gives you the leverage to say when the work is complete to your satisfaction. So there's not a bunch of debris left in your yard. If part of the deal was they're going to grind the stump, that's been ground. And if possible, pay by credit card. That gives you the ability to dispute the charge if things go wrong. We've talked about this in numerous podcasts before.
Yep.
When you pay with the credit card, you get protections under something called the Federal Fair Credit Billing Act. It basically means that if somebody scams you or they don't do the work right and they won't fix it, you can dispute the charge with your credit card company. You can at least get your money back.
Some of our listeners are real do-it-yourselfers. What can homeowners actually handle on their own? We're going to talk to Kevin about that next. I'm Herb Weisbaum, and you're listening to Consumerpedia, powered by Checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. Most trees we see in forests live about 100 to 300 years, but a few species can survive for a millennia under the right conditions. The oldest known individual tree is a bristlecone pine in California. It's more than 4,800 years old. The most common trees in North America are conifers, spruce, pine, and fir, covering vast stretches of Canada and Alaska. White oaks and maple led in the eastern U.S. Trees can talk to each other, sort of. They use underground fungal networks, sometimes called the Wood Wide Web, to share nutrients and even send warning signals about pests.
All right, do-it-yourselfers, this segment is for you. Things that you can actually handle on your own. Kevin, let's run down some things.
Yeah, we should tie this. Things that you all out there can do on your own, but I'm definitely not doing it myself. But there is actually, according to the experts, there's a lot homeowners can do on their own in terms of tree care. They can plant trees. It's pretty straightforward to do. There's a lot of different steps and you have to do it right, but you could do it on your own. Pruning small branches, obviously ones that are close to the ground are going to be the safest ones to deal with. You shouldn't be climbing up high into trees if you're my age, and especially if you're Herb's age.
Especially.
And then, some trees do benefit from fertilization. Those are things a motivated homeowner can do well. You want to learn about these things. The International Society of Arboriculture, we just talked about them. They have great guidance on its website about all this for free there. And we'll put a link in at the end of the show notes about how to find that.
And by the way, there are specialized fertilizers. There are certain ones like for rhodies and azaleas, and there are certain ones for maple trees and that sort of thing, or general fertilizers. So look at the bag and see what it says when you go to the store to buy it.
Yeah, and know that some trees, the experts say, look, there's no benefit in fertilizing some types of trees. So it's better to know what you're doing rather than just over-fertilize.
Yeah, well, my 100-year-old cedar, I'm not fertilizing, but
exactly.
the smaller ones. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about pruning. You could probably do it, Kevin, if you thought about it. I know I can do it.
Yeah, and so the dormant season is the best for doing that. Target dead or dying branches, anything that's, if you have one branch rubbing another or limbs that are growing toward the center of the tree as opposed to away from it. Those are usually good targets for pruning. Usually when you have trees pruned, when you're hiring experts, often what the contract says is they're going to trim away branches that are more than an inch in diameter that are dead, kind of get rid of all the dead growth. Another thing is, though, it used to be that a lot of times when people would prune branches or especially remove really big limbs, that they would paint the wound with something. Experts now say, no, don't do that. It actually interferes with the tree's natural healing process, this painting that people used to do.
I always learn something when I do these podcasts. We used to do that at my house. I grew up in the woods, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and every time we took a big branch off, we painted it with black goop. I don't know, it was tar. I don't know what, and we thought that was the right thing. We thought we were so smart. We also put cement in the center of something was like a little hollow or whatever. You're not supposed to do that either, are you?
Apparently not. No, apparently it's just let the tree heal on its own. Make sure that the cut you've made is flush, that it's not, all jagged and broken. But painting these wounds is just a bad idea.
All right, well, I think we've covered everything. I guess the bottom line, though, is if you don't know what you're doing, you can actually harm the trees. Find somebody who does, hire a gardening service or something, do minor pruning or whatever, as opposed to you just going out there and whacking the tree. I think, Herb hires. That's my slogan.
Yeah, and don't just hire somebody, they just come along with a chainsaw. They say they know what they're doing. I mean, it really is important that you check into these companies and you hire a true expert.
Well, Kevin, I think we covered everything. Not too bad for someone who said he doesn't know anything about trees.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I know what a tree is. I know one when I see one, and I stand by that.
And we will take you at your word. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Herb.
Before we go, a few home-related Consumerpedia episodes you might want to check out. Number 14, How to Buy Plants and Get Good Lawn Care. Number 82, Getting Rid of Household Pests. And number 87, Don't Get Burned by Solar Scammers. And with that, we're out of time. We hope you'll rate this episode. It's really helpful. And follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us at Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, at consumerpedia.org on Blue Sky, and at My Consumerpedia on X. You can find me at consumerman.com. I'm Herb Weisbaum, always looking out for you. Until next time, be smart and shop wisely.
Consumerpedia is a public service of Checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Seattle, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.